It may have taken 62,473 years, but finally we got a long-term payoff on Raw, and doesn't that make you feel good inside? Like, I'm not saying it was the greatest thing I've ever seen in my life, but I am saying I enjoyed it muchly, and I can't wait to see what happens on next week's episode. I mean, sometimes, like, especially in 2018, early 2019, you would get episodes of Raw, but there would be no connection whatsoever, and you'd scratch your head going, wait a minute, I thought this was meant to be an episodic television show. Now it feels like it again. I'm very happy. This is WhatCulture Wrestling. My name is Simon Miller. Let's up those damn Dows. It may have ended with the most ludicrous conversation I have ever seen in my life, but I like the beginning of Raw, which featured AJ Styles, Randy Orton, and Drew McIntyre. I think it was mostly as you don't usually see any of these three guys in that spot, and while of course it did begin with an opening monologue, I have just come to understand that officials in WWE totally believe that if they don't do an opening monologue to kick off Raw, they assume the world will just explode or the aliens will come down and pew pew, kill us all with laser guns. Orton was out first though, and he was lapping up the crowd reaction before he told AJ Styles to get his butt out here so that he could show him why he's going to win the Royal Rumble. Now that didn't make any sense, Randy, because even if Styles had got in there and you had taken him and just chucked him over the top rope, if that was the Royal Rumble, you'd still have 28 other people to eliminate. So use your brain, you stinking snake. Anyway, eventually Styles did come out and he got right in Randy Orton's face. He was like, you know what, pal? I think my RKO was even better than yours. And as those two argued, yeah, Drew McIntyre decided to insert himself into this program, so the plot thickened. He made a penis joke straight away because, you know, he pretended that Orton and Styles comparing RKOs was the equivalent to your dong and said it doesn't matter because his Claymore was bigger than all of theirs. And Randy was so appalled by this, he just threw his microphone up into the air and let it land on the floor. That was quite funny. Just to underline that this is a new feud, Drew proposed a triple threat match, they got a triple threat match, and somehow McIntyre won. But you know what? Up. The OC were made to look like nerds before this had began properly because they ran out here to try and help Styles before one got RKO'd and the other got Claymore kicked. So what a bunch of twonks they are. They were out of there before you could say penis jokes, and kind of surprisingly, this didn't go very long, and I had nothing against that, but I thought given the caliber of athletes who were in the contest, they'd probably go about 10 or 15, but really, it was over before it even began. They were all trading some pretty good moves, including Drew McIntyre hitting that awesome German suplex thing when, like, Randy Orton was going for a powerbomb on AJ Styles, but Drew gets involved and he throws them all to the floor. And of course, AJ was then trying to RKO Randy because that's his new thing. Didn't work out well for the Phenomenal One because instead he got RKO'd, but then Randy Orton got Claymore kicked. And because it was a triple threat match in WWE, Drew then stole the pin by covering AJ Styles. I mean, WWE always does that, but I don't care. This was a good old time. I also terrified halfway through this because Randy Orton hit AJ Styles with the Styles Clash. And if you know the history of that move, you know how wrong it can go. And I know it's all down to AJ. All you got to do is put your neck the other way. It gave me the heebie-jeebies. So yeah, all this was really good. It has added some intrigue to the Royal Rumble. And maybe Drew McIntyre is actually going to win. Yeah, right. Big Show then got a woohoo, he's back video, and I do need to ask if this was like edited by the Marvel team because they treated it like he was some kind of superhero. Like it had Batman music in it going dun 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 dun. And before you say, I know that's DC, I'm just trying to make a point. And we also saw Seth Rollins having a conversation with the AOP saying how great they all are. Now look, this group does get awesome before the end of the night, but I do need to know why Seth conducted this conversation with his friends, stood in front of them, looking away from them, while they stood behind him. So, hello, my name is Simon Miller and welcome to the first ever episode of Nobody Stands Like That. Seth Rollins, I have no idea what you were doing, but if you were my pal, if you were my buddy, if you were my friend, and you decided to stand a couple of inches in front of me while I had to stand behind you, and you talked in the other direction, I would just walk off because I would be partially offended. Also, I don't have the best hearing in the world, so I'd probably stand there the whole time going, Seth, I can't hear you because you are not doing what any normal human being would do. Why? because nobody stands like that. Seth is also now wearing one glove, like he's Michael Jackson. Ricochet then destroyed Mojo Rawley, and I mean destroyed. I don't even think this went 3 minutes. Like, Mojo got a little bit of offense in, and by the way, where the hell has Mojo Rawley's blue goop gone? So I guess we just have to add that to the treasure trove of, oh, we just dropped this storyline, but we didn't tell anybody. Sorry about that. But it went nowhere because eventually he got hit with the 630 and he lost 1, 2, 3. Surprisingly, this is not the end of our Mojo Rawley story for this evening. On top of that, at least Ricochet won. And why did no one listen to me though? I made it very clear last week that we need to stop putting the Street Profits in these dumb backstage angles because it's not going anywhere, and yet we did it again, and now we're just going, we know the lines were giving them a crap, but we're going to give it to them anyway. And they do as good as they can with this stuff, but here they made an Oscar reference and then said, oh yeah, that was a forced pop culture mention. That is like Far Cry Blood Dragon, as weird as that sounds to bring in. But in Far Cry Blood Dragon, the game made by Ubisoft, you had to do a tutorial as the game went, aren't tutorials really stupid? But they still made you do a tutorial. WWE, if you know that making forced pop culture references are no good, just don't do them. Down. Talking about things I said last week, what else did I tell you? In fact, I'm going to get in my Back to the Future machine, push the button, boop, let's go. And you know they'll probably have a match next week and Charlotte Flair will just win. See, I knew it. Charlotte Flair and Sarah Logan did have a match and Charlotte Flair just absolutely ruined her in around about 120 seconds. She locked in the figure 8, Sarah Logan tapped out. What a waste of my darn life. Down. And there's this rumor going around that maybe it will be Logan who chucks Charlotte Flair out the Royal Rumble. And look, I hope that does happen because then I've been proven wrong and I love being proved wrong. That is the whole point. If it is the case, when we get to Royal Rumble ups and downs, I will retract this down. This made me very sad. Owens, Samoa Joe and Big Show were then hanging out backstage playing Nintendo, and they still don't know what the rules for this fist match are, but they don't care because as Samoa Joe said, when those two go and beat people up, they leave them in a pool of their own vomit. That's not a joke, that's what he said. And then Big Show said, also, look how big my fist is. It's a 7 times fist, whatever that means, so I can punch some people. Kevin Owens then felt better, and we're gonna find out what this match is later on. Spoiler, don't get too excited. Then from nowhere, WWE gave us one of the most entertaining segments we have had for ages. And if you want to be that guy, you can pick holes in it, but I'm not gonna do that. It was like Christmas again, I tell you. Give it 10 ups. No, don't do that. Just give it 1 up. It was Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman doing their Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman stuff. And fair play to the crowd here who really got involved. They were booing these two so much they pretended they were going to leave. Then they came back to the ring and Paul Heyman was like, oh, it's Brock Lesnar, the Moose. And he's going to enter the Royal Rumble. He's going to win the Royal Rumble. And that is the truth. And because Paul had said truth, out came our truth, who did indeed think he had been called out. And the best part of all of this is that the 24/7 champion wasn't intimidated by Brock Lesnar at all, and of course said the reason that he is here is because of his childhood hero, John Cena, which makes no sense because our truth is older than John Cena, who taught him never to give up. So right now he's gonna live his dreams. He continued to build and build and build with his words before he said that he would enter the Royal Rumble, and when he did so, he would throw out, Paul Heyman. It was unbelievably dumb. Brock Lesnar laughed like he was at a comedy club. Heyman himself looked absolutely dumbfounded, and I was in a very good mood. The Advocate then tried to explain to Truth that he wasn't in the Royal Rumble and that it was Lesnar who was going to enter. That freaked out Truth, so he then took himself back out the Rumble, and all of this was just so over the top. Like I said, it was so stupid, but you couldn't help but enjoy it because everybody played their roles perfectly. Truth then admitted he wasn't really listening when he was backstage because Heyman just goes on and on and on, and also he's not a fan of spoilers, which Heyman seems to do all the time. I mean, all of this just added up so well, especially when Truth then got a microphone and started to sing his entrance music right into Brock Lesnar's face. Round of applause for days. That was obviously the tipping point, and Lesnar then absolutely ruined our Truth. And the only thing that really devastated me is that at one point Brock pretended that he was going to pin Truth and become the 24/7 champion. I know, I understand why they didn't do this, but what an amazing story they could have told. I actually think WWE should have gone all in. Imagine Brock in the Rumble with a bunch of geeks trying to stop him, but then being like, nah, I don't want to take you on. That was when Brock Lesnar and Paul Heyman left, and then instead of what I just pitched, Mojo Rawley appeared from nowhere he kicked R-Truth in the face and he became the 24/7 champion. Now, I will say this. If WWE does have a plan here and we stop putting the belt back on R-Truth simply because that's the law of diminishing returns, I'm over it now, maybe this will be good for Mojo. But when you remember what WWE has done in the past, when it comes to Mr. Rawley, well, I am dubious. Interview with Lana and Bobby Lashley next as they were making their way to the arena, and of course they're just really mad. Everybody's jealous of them, they're really bored, they're really sick of it, and they're gonna beat up Rusev later. Yeah, they probably will. And we had Big Bobby versus Ruru, and unfortunately it's getting it down. The real issue is that we are gonna keep going with this, and I will explain in just 1 second. And while I do respect WWE for going all in, and again, giving us a long-term storyline, I just find myself not really investing. I would like Rusev to separate himself from this and go off in a different direction. But for some reason, Lana was out there dressed as Joseph, wearing his Technicolor Dreamcoat. If someone could explain that to me, I would really appreciate it. And the basic ending went from nowhere. Liv Morgan walked down the ramp. She got in Lana's face. Lana threw a drink into her face. And Rusev was so surprised by what he was seeing, he forgot that he was having a match with Bobby Lashley. He turned around into the spear. And yes, Bobby Boy got the victory. Afterwards, Lana was so mad she challenged Ruru and Morgan to a mixed challenge, and that verbiage, those words, really scare me, because what the hell is a mixed challenge? She didn't say fight, she didn't say match, she didn't say contest, she didn't say brawl, she just says mixed challenge, and you just know WWE has something crazy concocting in their minds, and it is giving me the fear. Bobby then got all mad at this because he just beat Rusev, and now he has to worry about beating him again, while also protecting Lana, and we saw their first fight on television. They've only been married for a week. Viking Raiders do seem to be doing some kind of open challenge gimmick. And really, this ain't in the league of John Cena's open challenge gimmick, which was really fun. They called some people out. It was the Singh brothers. The Singh brothers then got pulverized. And I am giving this a down. The tag team titles have never felt more irrelevant. Rusev and Liv Morgan then accepted the challenge that they had just given. And again, I got really scared because Rusev said, I will accept any challenge you want to put out there. It's probably going to be a flippin' sack race. I'm also worried because Rusev also had the line, if you come in my face, I am going to fight you. Nope. Becky Lynch and Asuka then had a contract signing and it was all right up. Lynch was out first and she's so riled up at everything that's been going on the last few weeks she couldn't even speak. But when Asuka arrived on the scene, she didn't feel the same. She cut a promo in Japanese, and even though I have no idea what she's saying because I don't speak Japanese, she comes across like such a good heel or such a good character. Asuka is the best. Kairi Sane had accompanied her and was being an asshole with the umbrella, so Becky Lynch snapped that away like a mum who was in a supermarket with her kid and was just sick and tired of their shenanigans. And then, yeah, both did sign said contract. However, when Becky Lynch went to almost offer her hand to Asuka, do you know what the Empress of Tomorrow did? She arrived in today and she spat the green mist in Becky's face. Lynch sold this like it was acid and there were medical people out there spraying water into her eyes and she went, oh my eyes, I can't see my eyes. And I will say, if you are going to do this green mist stuff, this is the way to do it. I genuinely believed that I should be scared of mist. It pissed Becky off something fierce and finally she found her tongue. And all I will say, the little disconnect I am having with this, like before Becky signed the contract, she was all wary, like, oh, should I sign, should I not sign? And here she was all wound up like, Asuka, I know you're the best person in the world, but I'm gonna try and beat you, but I'm not sure if I can, but I'll do my best. Oh, I can hear that. I would just shelve it. I want more of a Conor McGregor type vibe. I know that's kind of stereotypical, but I think that's what she's trying to, summon here. Or even Stone Cold Steve Austin, if you want a wrestling one. I want Becky Lynch to walk out there. I want her to sign the contract with no fear. And if she does get green mist spat in her eyes, I want her to get even more angry. But that's just like a minor criticism. I am very excited for this match, especially if WWE allows Asuka to win. Can you imagine? I'm just talking from a narrative point of view here. I think that story is so much more interesting. It has so much more depth. If you want to build that to WrestleMania, I'm all right with it. Even though I want to see Becky Lynch versus Shayna Baszler, I would push that over there to have this go all the way. Also, on the quiet, Becky Lynch actually deserved this, given that 7 days ago, she cheap-shotted Asuka. So you reap what you sow. We also then got it confirmed that it will be Rey Mysterio versus Andrade for the US title next week in a ladder match. And given that that is happening on Raw, I think we can successfully say goodbye pay-per-views, you no longer matter, and it is all about television. I mean, the Royal Rumble is only like 2 weeks away, but instead, we're doing it there. Zelina Vega accused Rey Mysterio of being an asshole and a criminal before we jump to Rey Mysterio, who was really, really upset and offended that Zelina Vega had called him a criminal. Like, right, that's not, like, doesn't make it real, doesn't make it legit. Police aren't going to turn up your house and arrest you and go, I'm really sorry, but you were accused of being a criminal, so now we have to take you to jail. We all know you're not a criminal, you're gonna be okay. Raw then got brilliant. It was round 3 between Buddy Murphy and Aleister Black, and they absolutely smashed it because that's what they do. Up. If you want to be those guys, yes, you could probably say this was the worst of the 3, but even then I would take that word worst back and just say the least good. It was still absolutely incredible, and I had such a fantastic time watching it. I felt like I was on holiday. It also tied into one hell of a badass ending for Raw this week, which I already mentioned earlier, but I will get to that when we get to that. And the only thing that we have to criticize is what I think was a botch by the referee, because as always, Aleister Black was able to hit the black mass onto Buddy Murphy, but Buddy Murphy didn't move, but the referee went 1, 2, oh, his shoulder is up. I don't think his shoulder was up. And WWE has done such a good job in trying to protect the black mass. The wrestling nerd in me was a little bit upset by this. But hey, look, WWE is always telling us just forget what you saw. This is the exception to the rule. In this case, we should just pretend it didn't happen. Aleister then just picked up Buddy and black massed him once again to get the victory, and all of this was so good, especially because in a few minutes it's about to get even better. For you see, even though it was Eric Rowan time, Buddy Murphy stayed at ringside. He was leaning against the barricade and he was just so forlorn and so upset. And even when Charlie Caruso came up to him, Buddy Murphy, you failed again. Why are you such a crap wrestler? He was like, look, I can't talk right now. Leave me alone. So at first you assumed it was just going to be like some small story thing, but nah. It was much bigger than that. As for Rowan, well, you know the deal. He was fighting a jobber, he beat the jobber, and the cage was involved. And at one point he went out to the cage and something bit him. Ugh. Anyway, given this has been going on now for the last millennium, I have come up with a list of things that may be in Eric Rowan's cage, and no, that is not a euphemism. Hornswoggle, me, Daniel Bryan's lost hair, the returning Shane McMahon, Stephanie McMahon, Alf, the Gobbledygooker, Max Moon, Mae Young's hand, the remains of Katie Vick, too much, Vince Russo, Chris Jericho, but it's not Chris Jericho, it's somebody else playing Chris Jericho, like when WWE had the fake Razor Ramon and the fake Diesel. And the gimmick of the new Chris Jericho is that he bites. Bugs Bunny, Santa, Snitsky, wasn't his fault. Tito Santana, a skunk, Maury Povich, Jerry Springer, I have absolutely no idea. Down. It was then main event time and we were about to find out what a fist fight was, but again, I'm not gonna tease you. It's just a last man standing match. There's no DQ, there's basically no rules, and when the referee decides a team can't get up, the other team wins. Why WWE has to do this all the time, I don't know. You've put so many marketing hours and dollars into the idea of a last man standing match. Just say they're going to have a last man standing match. Fist fight doesn't even sound that good. So that gets down. Everything else was great though, and like I've said, kudos to WWE for paying off an angle that really you didn't see coming, but at least rewarding viewers who do stick with you week in, week out. Up. It was a pure brawl from the off with Seth Rollins and the AOP attacking Big Show during his entrance, but before you could say where's the kendo sticks, Samoa Joe and Kevin Owens ran out to balance the odds, and they had kendo sticks. Because Big Show is really strong and tough, he broke one of these kendo sticks after hitting Seth Rollins with it, and I did scratch my head a little bit there. I was like, dude, it's just a thin piece of wood. I think we could all break a kendo stick, really. Owens then stole the show when he used the Raw set as like a rampway and basically ollied off of it and jumped onto the AOP, and Samoa Joe, not to be outdone, was then sentoning the AOP through a table as well. Absolute carnage. It was here when things got really great, because Seth Rollins realized, uh-oh, I am in a world of trouble. And as Big Show was about to descend down upon him, he looked at Buddy Murphy, who was still at ringside. He said, Mr. Australia, please, will you come in and help me? That Buddy was like, nah, mate, I'm really upset. You gotta leave me alone. But then just as Seth was about to be KO punched by the Big Show, Buddy Murphy changed his mind. He got in the ring, he slammed Big Show right in the balls, which if you do watch every episode of Ups and Downs, you now know is the third most devastating move in all of sports entertainment, but we won't talk about that now. And it seemed like they had formed a bond. They threw the Big Show through a table, and then AOP did the same to Samoa Joe and Kevin Owens, which meant all of these guys were then able to beat up the Big Show, and after a curb stomp, the referee had decided ain't none of these three fools going to be able to get up, so I'm awarding the victory to Seth Rollins and the authors of pain. The bad guys had done it, Mr. Burns had won it, and that's right, we have a brand new member in this ever-growing group, and it also means that Buddy Murphy is now in a faction that is considered a top faction on Raw, and as you can probably tell by my wild mannerisms, I think that is absolutely faboo, and it's what he deserves. Long-term storytelling tick, a good payoff tick, and a position that can actually help you build a future star. What is this? Give it a tick. Honestly, this is the kind of stuff that Raw needs to do more often. I felt rewarded as a viewer, and like I say, I will be tuning in a week's time to see what they do with this. And Seth's group continues to grow, and he keeps acting like the savior of Raw, which is a little bit weird, but it works. It was one of the best endings to Raw I can remember, and that's why when I get my overall spinny arrow, it is getting an up. And in fact, all in all, decent episode of Raw. There's a lot of dumb stuff on there. The good stuff was really good. And we had our truth and Brock Lesnar. Now, don't forget to leave a comment below and let us know what you thought about the show last night. Like, share, and subscribe. Head over to WhatCulture.com and read yourself some articles. Follow WhatCulture on Twitter at WhatCulture WWE, and watch more videos here on WhatCulture Wrestling. My name is Simon from WhatCulture. Thank you, as always, for joining me. And you're gonna do it already, but if you do disagree, you just gotta let me know. And if you do agree, you can come and join my club too. I will see you soon.